Well, greetings everybody. Welcome to our King's channel. What a beautiful day of Pentecost, the Feast of Pentecost this is. Sabbath just ended, the seventh day Sabbath right now is Pentecost, but you can watch this video at any other time. This is just to have a holy convocation at this time, and my brothers, my sisters, my friends, fellow countrymen and women, please call me by my noun. My name is Al-Yahnai, okay? That's fine enough for me. I don't need a pronoun or anything else of that sort. We've got enough problems as it is on the horizon. And the reason for many of these things that are shaking up society today are part and due with the old Jabberwocky. And here shortly I'll endorse a video that I hope y'all will take the time to look at, as I hope you did also on the venom of asps that is in the Jabberwocky in the video that I had recommended before. Otherwise, this video may make you feel totally ill, even though you may have stayed far away from the snakes, so that your DNA isn't changed into that of one, possibly no longer being considered human, but a chimera or whatever. And everybody please pay attention to what I have on the screen here right now. This is part of the American Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestone, and it says here in English. It's got several other languages that they use on the other stones. But the first goal of this new world, what they want to say, order, and you can order anything, They crack down sometimes on certain orders like human trafficking, where people order certain human beings and such. And the new world has their own sort of order going on. So it says here, maintain humanity under 500 million. In perpetual balance with nature. Okay, so somehow they have to be able to depopulate us because there's 10 billion or whatever they want to say there is on the earth today, but they want to bring that number down to 500 million. Now these things are Satan induced. Satan does own the world. She doesn't own the earth. She owns the world. And all those of the world is Revelation 12 verse 9 that I brought out many times, wherein the whole world is deceived. The earth itself is not deceived. The trees and such aren't deceived. They've been perverted, they've been defiled, but they've not been deceived. Neither of the fish, though men are polluting them and perverting them and even changing the structure of their seed. But these wicked and evil ones want to maintain humanity under 500 million people. And they've came up with all sorts of excuses that the land can't support them and everything else. Well, all of humanity that is on the earth today could actually move to Texas and survive in Texas, each having their own land, okay? So, and I'm not talking hundreds of thousands of acres, but a nice sized little plot. And much of the land out there hasn't even had human feet on it yet, So they've got all sorts of lies, and I hate lies, but that's what this world teaches, is lies. I mean, if you take a look at Mount Everest, they say there's seashells and such on the very top of it, So at one time that was undersea. And the earth has been changing over and over again. It shows that the Sahara Desert not only was thriving in plush and lush, but it was like 500 years ago. And they want to let us know that it's been millions of years or such, that the Sahara Desert came into being. But these are all just lies. I seen where the Statue of Liberty in the early 1900s, I think it was, or shortly after they constructed it there on her little island, where the water levels were actually higher than they are today. Now, I don't know if it was because of tides or not, but they quenched my curiosity into that by saying that they took it at high tide, where it is today, and it's way lower than the high tide shown back in the early 1900s, I believe the picture was taken. We've been lied to so much over the years, and certainly we should see a great decline in the problems with this, where China had shut down several cities. There's not all the automobiles and everything out there. there was a lot of complaints about the cities being encased in smog and such. And certainly with the shutdowns, since the coronavirus started, so many things had been shut down. And with the lesser amount of the CO2 and everything that's emitted from automobiles and people's prior everyday lives, now even raising the price of tax to try to keep people home even further, certainly it should have done something with the climate on the earth, would it not? Well, absolutely not, because our Heavenly Father, through His righteous Son, has told us what's going to take place in these last days. And I just want to point out that they're trying to kill us. And what I have to bring, I hope will inspire you greatly. As to many of you out there, I know Timothy P., he suffers as I suffer, and many of you suffer as well that are actually walking in the truth, but that's what we've been promised. And that's what's mistaken where Tertius had written here in the book of Romans, in that many of the religions out there, they don't understand where it shows here the law cannot save from sin. And thus they think that keeping the law, can't bring you into the kingdom, but my friends, if you break any of the give or take 613 laws that apply to you, and you do it knowingly, willfully, or intentionally, then please read Hebrews 10, verse 26 and 27. And for those that are keeping the give or take 613 laws, which define how to keep those 10 commandments that even the religions say that we must keep if you want salvation, but they say the law's done away with. And no, the law cannot save from sin. You have to love the law, and you have to save yourself from sin by building character and a backbone in you to say, no, I'm not going to sin anymore. And I got to tell you, my friends, it's a horrible thing that's taking place on the earth today. Remember the Georgia Guidestones? Even long ago, this man, Tertius, who wrote Romans, and as it shows over here, in Romans 16, verse 22, it says, I, Tertius, who wrote this epistle, greet you in Messiah. So if anyone else thinks that I'm reading from a different author than that, I don't think I am. I think I'm reading from what Tertius, though I've not heard of him other than showing he's been the author of Romans, to me I believe the man's quite learned, especially when you read this chapter here that is so grossly misunderstood. Starts out with Romans, or I should say part of a chapter, as we start out here in Romans 7:13, it says, has then what is beneficial. Okay, instead of this word good, if you see here in the Strong's, good is word G18, Greek 18, and it means of a beneficial, we'll say, constitution or nature, useful, salutary, beneficial, pleasant, agreeable, joyful, excellent, distinguished, upright, honorable. So these are the attributes that's being bestowed upon this word good. It's not meaning righteousness. It is a form of righteousness, but what righteousness is, as you all know, Deuteronomy 6, verse 25, then it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to observe all these commandments before Yahweh our Father, as He has commanded us. And if you don't know where He's done that, please go to the Old Testament and read it, especially the book of Exodus, and you'll see where our Father has commanded us to keep His laws and His commandments. In fact, Messiah was asked, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Okay, so the laws are actually commandments as well, and if you keep them, you'll do well. But He's not speaking as in keeping the commandment there, and you'll see it toward the end of the chapter, I hope, that things will fall in place to where He's talking about the flesh, your holy temple here. And I'm going to show you how we've been poisoning ourselves, bringing on this sinful nature in our flesh, but not the sin according to the commandment, but that which we're doing against our own flesh when we eat certain things like these seed oils, and even worse, the Jabberwockies, but we'll get to that here shortly. Has then what is beneficial, and remember all the definitions of that word there, and that's why I'm going to say the word is that is portrayed there as good, I'll just state as beneficial. And it'll clear up what this is actually speaking of, I hope, unless you're dead set against truth. Has then what is beneficial become death to me? Certainly not, but sin, that it might appear sin, was producing death through me. Has then what is beneficial become death to me? Certainly not, but sin, that it might appear sin, was producing death in me through what is beneficial. So that sin through the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. See? Now, when you eat Doritos, which you shouldn't, because not only are they unclean, but they have many things in there that defile the flesh, but so are things, and I'm not blowing my own horn when I show you this. I had to shrink myself way down, but this here is a picture of a wheel cart I got in the back. You might be able to see the tire here. And this has got a big box. This is a big box on the bottom. There's another box under it. There's bags here. And all these things I had cleaned out of my cupboards, my storage. I mean, look at that. Now here in the cinnamon raisin granola breakfast food here, even shows it's organic. And I read through the ingredients and I saw that there was nothing unclean in these things, and that's why I bought them. However, I also made mention through many videos of the past how it's like every time I ate, I felt poisoned. And I felt poisoned all the time, but worse after I ate. And so with the new understanding and the knowledge, and it's pretty blurry there, and here you can see the organic tomato basil pasta sauce. I had several jars of different varieties of the Great Value brand that I simply had to get rid of. These were non-GMO red sweet pepper strips that I had several jars of, and I got them from Dollar Tree. Little jars of red peppers, and red peppers are very beneficial for you, but I believe they were in something like safflower or sunflower seed oil, and so they simply had to go. What breaks my heart is these here salad dressings, because I really enjoyed them. But these are the Simply Nature brand I got out of Aldi's. This was the aged balsamic, organic, and they had a few other varieties, vinegar and oil, ranch, and etc. And there must have been a dozen of these jars that I had to get rid of. Ranch, there you go. Oh, my friends. This is what kills me, man. These were blue corn chips from Simply Nature, and I had a couple big bags as you've seen on the cart. This here bag hanging on the side, this big bulbous bag here, was full of multi-grain and all organic chips, but they were made with, oh, I forget, sunflower, safflower seed oil. And I miss the crunch. I truly miss my chips, but I know that they were the sin in me. They were all part of the reason why I've been ailing, and I didn't understand it until I seen this video that I got to show you part of. Not the same video that I spoke of earlier, but a second one that I hope that you watch. And because of these things where I was poisoning myself, I was able to now see what our King wanted me to see through the recent sufferings that I went through with my kidney shutting down and everything else. But our King wanted me to understand this because I couldn't put this together myself. He showed this to me, whether I was sleeping or not, I can't remember. And I wasn't even in the scriptures. It came to my mind. His voice showed me and led me to see that. Has then what is beneficial become death to me? Certainly not. No, I told you before, we can't sin, man. We can only suffer. If you have the true understanding of the real truth, you're not going to die right away. Now, at the time they come to chop heads off, that might be a different story or subject. And depending whether we're gathered or not first before that takes place, has a lot to play. But right now, at this time, I've told you, I cannot die. Neither can any of my other 143,999 brothers out there, or the children of the earth, those that hear us and have turned from their sins and started keeping the give or take 613 laws that apply to them and are keeping the day of Pentecost here with us today, wearing your tassels, your tzitzits, your lots, eating butter and honey, keeping and living the rules of the kingdom. No, it's not going to become the death of you or me of what we eat that is considered clean. Some would even say beneficial, because it'll quench our cravings for something crunchy or things of that sort, which I've had to replace with pistachios and walnuts because they're beneficial and they have the proper oils in them. Just don't be buying it in a can or a bottle, because the walnut oil is already rancid before it leaves the factory, okay? And within 24 hours sitting on a shelf, give or take, it furthers in the rancidity. So get your walnut oil out of the walnuts themselves when you crunch them down. Has then what is beneficial become death to me? Certainly not, because it can't die. But sin, that it might appear sin, was producing death in me through what is beneficial. Yes, through these foods and such. The same death that I hope you can recognize here that it's speaking of. And I just put up in here Adam's sin, and I hit the search button, and it came up with 4 different verses that mention Adam and sin. Romans 5:12. When Adam sinned, sin entered into the world. Adam's sin brought death, so death spread to everyone, for everyone sinned. So we're all appointed to die once, okay? And we put things into these holy temples that bring us very close to this death. But if you're of, as I stated earlier, the believers in these last days, you can't die, okay? You can suffer, but you will die, or you'll be changed in the twinkling of an eye before Messiah comes, or at the time that he does come. So death spread to everyone, for everyone's sin. But there is a great difference between Adam's sin. This is Romans 5:15. There's a great difference between Adam's sin and Yahweh's pardonable gift. For the sin of this one man, Adam brought death to many. To all, actually. But even greater is our Father's wonderful pardon and acquittal and his gift of forgiveness to many through this other man, Yahshua or Yeshua, Yehoshua, our King. Romans 5:17, for the sin of this one man, Adam, caused death to rule over many. But even greater is Yahweh's wonderful pardon and acquittal and his gift of righteousness, for all who receive it will live in triumph over sin and death through this one man, Yahshua Messiah. Now please understand, we're reading in Romans 7 what he has been bringing up for us to see before we get to that part of the very same book that he's writing. So in order to really understand what's being said in Romans 7, which we'll get back to in a moment, one should actually read the full book of Romans, live a righteous life, and then sometime after you find out you can't die and then you suffer so much that you pray that you do, you come to understand what these words were so that they can comfort us in these last days, because they were written for the believers of the last days. Then here in 1 Timothy 2 verse 14 it says, and it was not Adam who was deceived by Satan. The woman was deceived, and sin was the result. Adam knew he wasn't supposed to eat of whatever that fruit was, or to do what he was told not to do, and he did it. The woman was deceived, but Adam, he sinned. And that's what this death is as well, because of the sin of Adam, it spread to everybody. So I hope you can see that as well as we read in here. But let's read that verse again, so hopefully you will see. Has then what is beneficial become death to me? Certainly not. But sin, that it might appear sin, was producing death in me through what is beneficial. And it's sinful for us to defile our holy temples. So that sin through the commandment. See, now it's showing a different variety of the sin. First, the sin of the sinful flesh. We are unclean. We're born unclean. We cannot become clean except through Messiah's blood. And these filthy holy temples we're living in today won't be allowed in the kingdom. And I hope you read these things already or heard other videos where I brought these things out. But here it's speaking of the give or take 613 laws that depict how you are to keep the 10 Commandments. And it's showing here that our nasty flesh, how defiled we become, even magnifies that which is against the commandments. Because as we suffer in this flesh, we're keeping the commandments, wondering, why Yehoshua, why Messiah, why my King do I have to suffer infernally every single day of this wretched life? Of what purpose is it? And though I'm eating only the clean things, the beneficial things, it seems like I get sicker and sicker because this death that came from Adam's sin to all of mankind, man must die once, but I pray I ain't got to be so miserable before I finally get that great prize and become worm fodder. But till then, I understand that, I'm doing everything I can to keep this holy temple holy, and it just gets sicker and sicker. Colon cancers, heart problems, broke my back. Just the list goes on and on and on, to where my kidneys and everything else is failing, But I'm combating those spirits. And I mentioned in the last video there about lemon juice with a little bit of honey, fresh squeezed, or it would be even better if you got a juicer and you did the whole lemon after washing it clean. Just put the whole thing right through and drink the juice of a lemon every day with some honey. And I drink it down about halfway, and I'll fill it with water again, filtered water. And when I drink it down, I'll fill it again so I get all my liquids that I need. And it's helped me greatly to get rid of a lot of that poisoned feeling. And of course, I've been eating cauliflower and broccoli mostly. In fact, this is my shopping list from last week. First one was cauliflower, then you got kombucha, pistachios, I got a jug of milk, beefsteak tomatoes, jalapeno peppers, another pound of walnuts, broccoli, raisins. These don't have anything added to the raisins. Couple jars of German-style sauerkraut. All the ingredients in there is just white cabbage and salt. And they don't use table salt because table salt makes any canned food mushy. They have to use a kosher salt or a canning and pickling salt. Then I got 2 bags of Great Northern beans. Now this seed-tastic organic bread doesn't have oils or anything in it, and the seeds that are in here are whole seeds. And I also got the sprouted 7-grain bread. I wanted to see the difference between a $1.55 avocado and the bag of mini avocados with 6 in there for $4.95 or $5. And so when I got the two, the $1.55 avocado was about the same size, same color and everything as those of the 6-count bag. So then I bought a bag of lemons, a dozen of large eggs, some Black Angus choice beef thin slice, which I made into beef jerky. And I love beef jerky, but I don't got 2 teeth I can chew it on that really match up that I can chew it with, so I don't think I'll be doing that anymore. And then I got a pack of mini cucumbers, so you can see that I'm eating properly. Now it was $100. And trying to take care of this holy temple the best I can by doing the beneficial things that I think are right. And I found out I was wrong. Has now what is beneficial become death to me? Certainly not. I can't die. But sin, that it might appear sin, was producing death in me through what is beneficial. Now, had I known that it was sin, I wouldn't have been doing it. And it's a different variety of sin, as I say, than which is of these commandments. So that sin through the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. Yes, breaking the commandment is way, way worse than eating seed oils, even organic seed oils, thinking they're beneficial for you when you find out they're not. It hurts, and you see, man, I was misled in these things, thinking I was doing benefit, but it was actually harming me and making me sicker. And I fasted for a couple days after I had bought the groceries. I didn't even eat the groceries for a couple days because it came on me that I needed to fast. And maybe we'll get into that in a minute. It says, For we know that the law is spiritual. Yes, you cannot become Holy Spirit filled without being filled with this law. The closer you come to keeping it perfectly, the closer you become Spirit filled. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. For what I am doing, I do not understand. For what will I do? For what I will to do, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. I tell you, I was becoming very slothful. I wasn't even washing the dishes half the time before I went to bed. The sink when I got up in the morning. Toward noon, I started feeling a little more energized. I had no energy when I woke up, and I've been sleeping for such long times, waking up completely exhausted, but not able to sleep any further, too sore. But I tell you, our King is sent, for me to let me see that he does love me. My light came on the other day, and it went from low to real bright, real quick. Whoop, where if I touch it and I bring it up, I've explained that in videos past. But I'm sitting here, and I felt a little chill on me, but I didn't really rebuke it. What I did was I tested it, and I let it know that if it was not of Yahshua, my righteous king, that it had to leave, and if it didn't, I would ask our king to send a holy Malach to take it to an early judgment. However, if it was a righteous spirit, and no, it's not the Holy Spirit, if it was a righteous spirit, there are quadrillions and gazillions of righteous spirits out there that haven't followed Satan. And eventually they do come down and visit. As many videos past, you've seen my light when I used to use it over there. When it used to come on over there, I don't feel so small now. But when it came on over there and we get real bright and everything else, one of the more recent videos I showed was where a whole room, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, illuminated. And I didn't have any lighting to do it. And so I stood up and I turned the light off and I said, I don't like that light, that bright, thanks anyway. And I did a couple things here at the desk, and then all of a sudden the light came on real bright and it went down whoop to real low. So, I thank the Spirit for not wanting to harm me, and that if it was righteous, it was welcome. And then I started to fast, and as I was fasting, with, of course, the lemon juice, and was preparing those thinly sliced steaks that I showed you I had just purchased. And what I do is I put them into a quart ball jar with the lid, and it's got an attachment that I have with my vacuum sealer. I got a nice one, I got one that's got these buttons that you have to push, and in order to seal, you have to depress both sides of this plastic bar, which is this model you can see right here, and where it shows over here on the screen, it says push the vacuum and seal. It's got this little indentation in the metal there on both sides, and you got to push in on each of those at the same time, like this, with your baggie up in that plastic window. And what it does, it'll suck that glass down and suck all the moisture out of your bags, all the air out of your bag. Mine's got chrome buttons on there instead of these ones, but it's the same model. And I just wanted you to see that, because what took place is I was preparing my steaks, getting them put into these glass jars with the marinade I made to make the jerky from. And when I reached to grab the adapter to stick on the jar, my vacuum sealer there started vacuuming. It turned on by itself, and it started the vacuum process without me even doing so. And so I just looked and said, hey, you don't have permission to be touching my valuable accessories. Please refrain. And if you're not of my heavenly Father, Yahweh, you better leave now, or I'll ask the Holy Malachim to remove you and bring you to an early judgment. So I didn't have nothing like that going on again for another day when it was getting close to the Sabbath starting. And I didn't want to cook my cauliflower and broccoli early, but I did cook some chicken breast up, and I needed a shower. So what I did was I set my timer for a half hour, because I knew after I took my shower, I had a bunch of other chores to do. I needed to vacuum real quick, things of this sort. And I knew that when this timer went off at a half hour's time, I knew I had to drop in my cauliflower and broccoli so that I could have it cooked prior to Sabbath, and where I could eat it right at Sabbath there, where it would be hot, nice enough to melt butter and such. But the thing is, as stated, I turned this on at the 30-minute mark. I went in to take a bath, or I should say a shower, and I didn't notice. Until about 10 minutes before Sabbath, I said, boy, time sure seems to be lagging on here. So I went and I checked. I said, it's like, what in the world? Something or someone or some being, someone or something had to touch this button here in order to make it stop taking down the minutes. As you can see here, something had to do that. And of course, I did not hear it because I was in the shower. And of course, along with my fasting, I also have been doing the kombucha here. I drank a couple bottles of it yesterday. Excellent blessing during the Sabbath. Here in Romans 7:15 says, for what I am doing, I do not understand. For what I will to do, that I do not practice. It's not saying he's going out and eating pork chops. He's not going out there raping people or murdering his brothers and sisters or his neighbor. He's not stealing. That's not what he's saying. But when you get feeling so nasty, there's things you need to get done, whether it's in fellowship or whether it's just cleaning your own house or eating properly, the things that are actually beneficial. And it's like you don't understand. It's like with me, with answering comments and such. I've been so behind on it. I know I'm not depressed because I'm beyond depression, I'm telling you, There's nothing can really depress me because I know everything is sanctioned by my king and your king too, I hope. The spirits are bringing about everything, so I don't get depressed. I understand what's going on with everything, but I don't understand why I just can't get myself in here to answer comments or to do the things that I know I should do, making more videos, whatever. And I do desire to do it, but it just can't bring myself about to doing it, For what I will to do, that I do not do. I don't practice it. But what I hate, that I do. I hate being unproductive. I used to work with my hands all the times. Now I'm in this one-bedroom apartment. Got a little deck out there, or patio, I should say. It's a cement slab that the sun only hits for like 2 or 3 hours a day, and yet I still try making a garden, and it sucketh. And I'm watching the world in the way that they are, just going to hell, in a handcart, and I can't do anything about it. So I ain't allowing too many people to come to even view on our King's channel here. For what I'm doing, I do not understand. For what I will to do, that I don't practice, but what I hate to do, being a sloth, that I do. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that the law is beneficial, it's righteous. But now it is no longer I who do it, but the sickness, the illness, and everything else that's in me that shouldn't be there. If I'm keeping the laws and commandments, shouldn't I have the greatest health of all and everything else according to what it says even in Deuteronomy chapter 28? But I haven't got the ambition, the energy to do anything, At least I hadn't. But then I came to the understanding of how I can kick these things out through fasting and prayer, and a lot of these ailments has been lifted off me already in a short time, and I'm thankful, just a couple days of a fast. But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin, or the disease, the defilements that dwells in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing beneficial dwells. And of course, he's not referring to Messiah who dwells in our hearts. He's speaking that you're not going to get anything beneficial out of a swine, except for maybe the squeal, It's the only part a righteous man will want to have any part to do with when it comes to swine being put on a table. Nothing beneficial dwells in this flesh, for to will is present with me. But how to perform what is beneficial, I can't figure it out. I just don't have the strength to do it, How can I vacuum the floor when the pains and everything else, the sufferings, the itching, the crapola that's on me, the feeling poisoned, it takes all I got out of me just to go to the bathroom and back. And so here I sit, verse 19, for the benefit that I will to do, I do not do, but the evil I will not to do, that I practice. I hate defiling this holy temple. And yet, I had to go out and find all these things throughout my cupboards and everything to rid myself of, because I was practicing those evils, eating things I had not ought to put in this holy temple. Though they're not listed as unclean, they're still dead. It says, now, if I do what I will not to do, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. And you know, there's a lot of foods out there that have very addictive characters to them. And you can see it in the stride of many Americans and those across the earth today eating such things. It makes them more portly, and sometimes they just can't stop eating. But as being a believer, we've got to have that power over ourselves, especially when it comes to finding things we should not be putting into this holy temple, because it just makes us suffer. And when we can't die and we get so sick that we should have died, like many other blades of grass in the field have already died from such things, but yet we suffer on, while in our quest trying to find the best things to feed this holy temple. I find then a law, that evil is present with me, the one who wills to do benefits, or beneficially. But you see here that the evil that's present with me, the one who wills to do benefits. Okay, it's the evil spirits coaxing us on to eating these things that we think are clean, and they know. They know full well what it does to us, and they love to watch us suffer. But furthering here, Tertius says in verse 22, for I delight in the law of Yahweh according to the inner man. Yes, we do. We love it. It's sweeter than honey in the honeycomb. And the law makes us perfect, converting the soul. Verse 23, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? This body of death, it's defiled. It's not talking about eating unclean things or raping or whatever that people want to make this chapter out to being. Oh, well, that fellow, you know, he did everything that he thought that he shouldn't do. No, it's not what it's speaking of. O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? I thank Yahweh through Yahshua Messiah, our King. So then, with the mind of myself I serve the law of Yahweh, but with the flesh the law of sin, and not speaking against, as it showed up here earlier, the subject matter, so that the real sin through the commandment, the give or take 613 laws it's speaking of, if you broke them, then it might become exceedingly sinful. I mean, it's bad enough discovering that you shouldn't eat certain things or whatever, but then to find out you was stealing something that you didn't know, or you bought stolen merchandise, you know, that's a totally different type of sin that's not being referred to in this part down from verse 13 to verse 25. I hope you can see these things. And here in Matthew 17, please read from verse 17 down to 21. I'll just read, however, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. Of course, this was a devil that was bringing on epilepsy upon a person, but there are also other varieties that you really need to fast for whatever ails you. Do some fasting, do some praying, and yes, drink some lemon and honey water. As you do the fast, that will cleanse out your organs and help cleanse your inward parts, you know, as a mechanic in a shop that uses gasoline or other solvents to get the grunge off engine parts. That's what the lemon and honey will do. And also, you should also try every morning on an empty stomach a mixture made up of a third part of honey and 2/3 parts of vinegar, and putting some raw garlic in there would not hurt. But to drink that every day on an empty stomach, or drink it just a tablespoon or two before you go to bed, you'd be amazed how beneficial these things will help you. But if you did these same things and fasted at the same time, a lot of these ailments that are upon us, these little devils that have been given permission to torment us, will end up fleeing. You don't believe me? Give it a try. Now, concerning these oils, I really hope that you'll go watch this video. It's entitled The $100 Billion Ingredient Making Your Food Toxic. It tastes wonderfully, but it's making your food toxic. It's got 1,800,000 views on there, but it was put out September 19th, 2021. This is a little excerpt from this video, in which led me to throw out a large amount of things that I absolutely loved.
The intense processing necessary to simply get the oil out of tiny seeds and into bottles easily damages them. Heat is a great way to oxidize fats, and vegetable oil is repeatedly heated long before it ever arrives in a kitchen. There are many steps to create edible oil, and several of them involve very high heat. The oil is heated to 80 degrees Celsius during the acid wash process. In the neutralization process, the oil can get up to 95 degrees Celsius.
The bleaching earth step is carried out between 90 and 110 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes.
At this point, the oil has oxidized so much that it's rancid and would taste terrible and smell awful if you ate it as is. This is why there is a final intensive deodorization process. During this extensive deodorization process, the oil is heated once again and can reach as high as 260 degrees Celsius or 500 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 125 degrees hotter than the temperature needed for deep frying.
So I hope that you further in watching this video from the start. It's 28 minutes and 19 seconds long, but it should inform you on how, since they started using these things from Crisco when it first came out, instead of using animal fats such as beef or goat or lamb, venison fat was a little bit too thick. I mean, venison, if it gets cold on you, it sticks to the roof of your mouth. So they didn't normally use venison fat for anything except for weatherproofing their garments. They use bear fat and unclean fats as well, but those who love the law, or at least were keeping them because they were commanded to do so, and so they do, like the Jews do today, some of them anyway, they would use clean fats for weatherproofing. But since they started using these oils in our food, and billions of pounds out there being sold every year to housewives and men, of course, you know, because men know how to cook too. And I know what a man is and I know what a woman is. I'm not willing to be retaught in these areas for a minority of people, 2 to 3% of the population 20 years ago, that's grown to who knows what it is today from the teachings in the schools. But it shows since 1900s here, when different types of vegetable oil, whether cottonseed or whatever, was first being introduced. And these are the statistics here shown for obese men and such, and diabetes. All these things correlate with the use of vegetable oils. And as you've seen in the video, they heated the oil up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit to get rid of the rancidity, to kill off that which made it rancid, and to neutralize the flavor so people would eat it. But these things are dead. When you eat it, they're dead. When you eat a piece of beef or a chunk of lamb or a plant, whatever variety, or fruit, these things are living. When you eat sunflower seeds, they're living. But the process that they bring through these oils into your diet are horrific, but they're obtaining the goal sought by those led by Satan, the devil, and her minions. And so you can see that you're actually seeing truth and that you're not going crazy about what's coming on the earth today. I want to read something to you, and I do pray that here on the day of Pentecost that the whole earth, the whole world will acquire Holy Spirit being poured out. Maybe it will be this Pentecost. Who knows? Did I say Pentecost or Passover? Well, now I'm sure if you really have eyes to see what the scriptures are telling us, here in 2 Timothy 3 verse 1, please put into play all that I've already showed you here in this video. Another video I'm going to ask that you watch here even today on the day of Pentecost, or whatever day you're watching this, please take the time. It's over 2 hours long, but what it shows is quite revealing. And I've showed in videos past, like 60% of what was brought out in his video. I've touched on these topics, explained certain things, but it all ends up with the Jabberwocky explaining and showing that many years ago, they already had this here Jabberwocky in the plan, and what it would result in with humanity in the days of Noah and such. And because some of these have already been administered, and you're watching the news and seeing things about pronouns and, you know, where media's going, and they've got in the White House there this delegation for truth, you know, whatever they want, ministry of truth. You know, it chokes me to, you know, even consider that such things came from their mouths, to defile even the word truth and what it means, fighting against disinformation when that's all they hand out. Please understand that what was being written of in 2 Timothy was for these days. Just as what we read in Romans 7 was for these days as well, and part of the journey in the life of one who's choosing to do righteously, just as Revelations chapter 2 and 3 speak of the 7 chapters in a righteous man's life to come to that house of Philadelphia, the house of brotherly love. But here in 2 Timothy 3:1 it says, "But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of righteousness." Man, you speak anything against the LGBTMNLOPs, you can end up in prison. As this insanity grows, it says traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of Yahweh. Oh yeah, I'll just cut this thing off. And you know, even when those do cut off their body parts and have other parts added to it or whatever, it does nothing with the chromosomes, my friend. Mama can't take your chromosome away. And just by chopping off a certain member does not make a man's chromosome go to that of a female. It don't work that way. And that's science. That's not disinformation, but what's coming out of the office of truth, or whatever, ministry of truth, is of a form of disinformation that brings conformity. And I'm not going to conform to these attributes. It says having a form of righteousness. Here they got godliness, and no, they do have a form of godliness. They all have their own gods. Some they even say is the, you know, chiefest God of all, you know, which is basically Elohim. But Yahweh's not a God, and neither is Yahshua or Yeshua or Yehoshua. But these ones have a form of righteousness, but denying its power, denying the power of being righteous. And from such people turn away. For of this sort are those who creep into households and make captives of gullible women loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Here showed, now as Jannes and Jambres resisted Moshe, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds, disapproved concerning the faith, but they will progress no further, for their folly will be manifest to all, as theirs also was. So as you can see the folly of their ways. It's manifest to everybody. No one understands how or why these people come up with the things that they do and have such prestige after injecting it into society that you have to love these ones. I do. I love them. I hate their sins. And Timothy further saying, but you have carefully followed my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long-suffering, love, and perseverance. You've seen these things, the persecutions, the afflictions that we've gone through, which occurred to me at Antioch and so on and so forth, what persecutions I endured. And out of them all, Yahshua delivered me. Yes, and all who desire to live righteously in Messiah will suffer persecution. But evil men and impostors will grow worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. But you must continue in the things which you have been learned and been assured of, knowing from whom you have learned them, which is the Holy Spirit sent by Yahshua, and that from childhood. See, now, the ones being spoken of here is that from childhood you've known the Holy Scriptures. So he's not talking to the Christians and the religions of the world today that may not have been brought up in the Scriptures, but they lived a life of sin and then all of a sudden went down and got baptized, and now the Jesus does it all for them. He's speaking to people that were brought up in the Scriptures, that Messiah had spoke to and said, it doesn't matter what goes in the mouth of a man. He wasn't saying to eat a squirrel, because who he was speaking to from their childhood, they were brought up that you were not to even touch the unclean thing. And yet the Christians of today that been out there peddling drugs and harlots and everything else, all of a sudden say, hey, we shouldn't do these things, so the Lord will do it all for us. And then they come up with, oh, look, you can eat whatever you want there because it don't matter what goes in your mouth. So if you don't enter into this kingdom as a child, you'll reject the meat of the Scriptures. We're showing that, and from childhood you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith, which is in Messiah. And of course, you can only get that faith through the schoolmaster, which is the give or take 613 laws. And I brought it out in videos before. Please do go back and watch. All Scripture is given by inspiration of Yahweh and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, and instruction in righteousness, in the obedience of keeping the commandments, that the man of Yahweh may be complete, thoroughly equipped for every righteous work. And please note that all these spirits and everything, they come to many people out there, the ones that are religious and everything. It says in 2 Corinthians 11 verse 14, it says, and no wonder, for Satan herself transforms herself into an angel of light, which there really isn't any angel of light. Angels are fallen holy malachim, and those that are referred to as angels today, many think are of our Heavenly Father. Well, our Heavenly Father owns all the angels. He gave everything to Yahshua, and Yahshua owns Satan, the devil herself, and all her minions. All the wicked and evil spirits are already owned by our King today. And there isn't any angel of light. It was a holy malach of light. Satan used to be a holy malach, but the world doesn't understand this either. They pray to angels and everything. You shouldn't even pray to holy malachim. They don't want you to, as shown in the book of Revelation. But Satan transforms herself into a malach, a holy malach of light, as a minister of righteousness. The light also can be translated as truth. And also, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. So this light is the word of our Father, which is also the law, okay? Therefore, it is no great thing if her ministers also transform themselves into ministers of righteousness, whose end will be according to their works. And these are imposters, okay? Your Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon evangelist preachers on the television and such. Every corner that's got a church on it, or wherever the church is located, they've got these in there. They're all ministers of Satan the devil, but they've transformed themselves into ministers as if they were ministers of righteousness, and they're not. They promote many things that none of us should be doing. And my friends, to help you also a little bit more, as it says here in 1 Timothy 5:23, it says, no longer drink water, which comes under the honor the elders chapter or section here in this chapter. And this word elders shouldn't be there either. It should and honor the old men. Down here it shows different things not to do and to do. But in verse 23 it says, no longer drink only water, but use a little wine for your stomach's sake and what? Your frequent infirmities. So yes, the righteous men in those days too were frequented with infirmities. Some men's sins are clearly evident, preceding them to judgment, but those of some men follow later. likewise of righteous works, if some are clearly evident, and those that are otherwise cannot be hidden. So let's be righteous. Let our righteousness be seen and testify on our behalf that we've been practicing what our King desired us to practice. Now, my friends, please, this video here, put out by officially the followers of Yah.com. Now, I don't agree 100% with everything that they've ever published, but there's a lot of things I've learned from these people in the past. And this video here pertains, but doesn't appear to start that way out. It's 2 hours and 26 minutes and 29 seconds long. Please do watch this with your full attention. And I hate when they call my Heavenly Father Elohim or Elo or whatever. However, I do my best to ignore that and to listen to the information that they bring out and the evidence to back up what they say. And like I say, much of what they say is truth. We are to prove all things, prove everything I've already said, because I'm led by our King, and you'll see that you should be walking in the same manner yourself.
Strong's number 4742, stigma. From a primary styzo, to stick to prick. A mark incised, or punched, for recognition of ownership.
Now showing here at the 2 hour, 23 minute and 56 second mark, it shows what he's trying to put a point across on here that I'm not going to mention, but he uses scriptures, he uses things that are taking place on the earth, and scripture also talks about how it's going to be like in the days of Noah. And what were like the days of Noah? They had these Nephilim running around. This video gets into that as well as the giants, how they've been trying to rejuvenate long dead pharaohs and such, and Nimrod himself. You need to watch this video. I hope you have a strong stomach. Remember in Jeremiah or Jeremiah chapter 23, it speaks of in these last days, we're going to come to understand all things perfectly. And if you'd like to understand the importance of the Jabberwocky, and maybe this is just part of that iceberg as well, and the information that comes out some other time will be even greater. But I'll tell you what, the amount of information in this particular video, it's entitled Satan's Serum and the Resurrection of the Nephilim. And because of the truth that it has, it's only got 3,739 views on it right now. And it premiered May 27th, 2022. That's when my driver's license ran out. And I actually went out to the motor vehicle department there to renew it, and they wouldn't allow me to do so because I didn't have a social security card with me. And I said, well, it's not even identification, don't have my picture or anything. Well, that's just what we have to have. So now I got to go through these things, and I had ordered some beer, not knowing it was my birthday, And when they brought the beer to the door, they couldn't give it to me because my driver's license was expired. And I tried explaining, and I'm so glad I didn't use the excuse, well, it's my birthday, because, believers don't do birthdays. It's all witchcraft. The only time birthdays were done was once with Pharaoh, with the baker that was devoured on his birthday, getting his eyes pecked out and everything. And then you had Herod, who had Yachanan, or John the Immerser, brought before him and had him beheaded on his birthday, blowing out the candles on the cake to make your prayers go up, your wishes go up to the gods, and all these things. It's all witchcraft, so we don't do birthdays, and I'm glad I didn't bring that up to him, but I didn't even realize it was my birthday until he told me it was no longer valid. And I asked him, I says, well, when did it run out? He says, well, today. I said, well, it's the 27th, right? He says, yeah. I says, well, midnight ain't got here yet, has it? I said, well, I don't know. He says, I don't know how they do that. He says, but it's not valid today, so I just let that go. But anyway, my friends, please watch this video. Again, put out by officially the followers of Yah.com. And if you go to their channel, from what they used to do, I don't know if they still do or not, but they would send you these DVDs for free that they put out there, including this one. They may also give this one for free. I didn't check. I'm not going to today. I got to get this video out to y'all. And therefore, I hope you liked what you heard. I hope this was a holy enough convocation for you. But you may feel sick when you do watch the followers of Yah.com's video here. Satan and the resurrection of the Nephilim, and you see this knowledge coming forth as to what we're facing in these last days. And please remember, our only trust, our only hope that we have is in our Messiah. So let's please our Heavenly Father through him, walk in his will, that you too may be known as brothers and sisters to our King. With that, I do love you all. Bye.